I sat at the long mahogany dining table in my Wellesley home, the crystal glasses catching the soft glow from the chandelier. The roast had gone cold. Vanessa placed the folder in front of me with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Mom, we already filed the paperwork yesterday. The house is no longer in your name." Derek leaned back, swirling his wine. His Rolex caught the light. "It's for your own good, Eleanor. You've been forgetting things. The charity checks, that ridiculous donation last month. We had to act." I looked at the documents. Power of attorney, deed transfer, petition for guardianship, all dated within the last 48 hours. My signature from 7 years ago stared back at me, the one I had given them for convenience during my brief hospital stay. Vanessa continued, voice smooth like the attorney she was. "We found a lovely assisted living facility in Newton. Private suite. They'll handle everything. You won't have to worry about bills anymore." I folded my hands in my lap. The room felt smaller. "You transferred the deed?" Derek nodded once. "Into a trust we control. Standard procedure for someone in your position. The monthly allowance of $8,500 stops next week, by the way. We need to tighten the budget." Vanessa reached over and patted my hand. Her nails were perfect. "You sacrificed so much for me growing up. Now it's our turn to take care of you. You'll thank us later." I said nothing. The silence stretched. Derek checked his phone, already bored. Vanessa stood, smoothing her skirt. "We'll send movers next week to help you pack. Just the essentials. The rest can be sold or stored." They left without finishing dessert. The front door clicked shut. I remained seated until the tail lights disappeared down the driveway. Then I rose. My steps were steady across the Persian rug. In the study, the bookshelves smelled of aged paper and polish. I unlocked the bottom drawer with a small key I kept on a thin chain around my neck. Inside lay a single black folder. Contingency plan. Activation date, today. I opened it slowly. The first page was a list of accounts they had never known existed. My fingers traced the numbers. 27.4 million. Silent stake. Distressed debt holdings. All still under my sole control. I closed the folder and placed it on the desk. What I found inside would change everything. The next morning the mail slot rattled. I was already at the kitchen island, coffee black and untouched. The envelope was thick, cream-coloured, from the Probate and Family Court of Middlesex County. I slit it open with a silver letter knife. Petition for appointment of guardian and conservator. My name listed under alleged incapacitated person. Vanessa's signature as petitioner. Derek as co-petitioner. Attached was an affidavit citing early signs of cognitive decline, including erratic charitable disbursements totaling over $40,000 in the past quarter alone. I set the papers down flat. No tremor in my hands. The clock on the wall ticked once. Twice. My phone buzzed. Bank alert. Monthly allowance deposit, $8,500, had been reversed. Memo line. Recategorized as unauthorized advance. Trust now in control. I opened the banking app. Balance in the household account, $412.17. The joint credit card they had insisted I keep for emergencies showed a zero available limit. I closed the app without expression. Later that afternoon, I sat in the study with my laptop. LinkedIn loaded slowly. Derek's latest post appeared at the top of my feed. A polished headshot, sleeves rolled, standing in front of a glass conference room. Caption: protecting what matters most. Family assets from poor decisions. Grateful to step up when needed. Hashtag legacy planning. Hashtag responsible stewardship. 247 likes already. Vanessa had commented, proud of my husband for doing the hard thing. I scrolled past without clicking. The study smelled of lemon polish and old paper. I pulled the black folder from the drawer again and laid the court petition beside it. Page by page, I reviewed the original power of attorney from 7 years ago. Paragraph 17 contained the loophole I had insisted on at the time. Automatic quarterly review clause, but had never been exercised. They had fired the guardianship without triggering it. Sloppy. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I had not used in 18 months. Marcus Hale answered on the second ring. His voice was calm, professional, exactly as I remembered. "Eleanor, I was hoping I wouldn't hear from you under these circumstances." "I need a secure meeting," I said. "Today." "My study. Bring the secure tablet. No email trail." He arrived at 6:15. Dark suit, no tie. We sat at the round table by the window. Outside, the garden lights clicked on automatically. Marcus opened the tablet and scanned the petition. "Standard language," he murmured. "They're moving fast." Hearing scheduled in 21 days. I slid the original power of attorney across. "Look at clause 17. He read in silence. His finger tapped the screen twice. "They never sent the required review notice. That alone is grounds for procedural dismissal. But they also attached an addendum that claims you verbally consented to the deed transfer. No recording, no witness." I poured him coffee, black, no sugar, the way he took it in the old days when we closed distressed debt deals at 3 a.m. Marcus continued. "The trust they created lists you as beneficiary only. They positioned themselves as trustees with full discretion. On paper, it looks airtight. Until we prove the power of attorney was never properly activated for this purpose." I leaned back. The leather chair creaked once. "They cut the allowance this morning. 8,500 gone. They think I have nothing left but social security in this house." Marcus's eyes flicked to the black folder. "Do they know about the silent stake?" "No one does. Not even Vanessa." I kept the equity firm partnership agreements in a separate LLC registered in Delaware. 27.4 million in current valuation. All voting rights still mine. He whistled low. "That changes the math. But they're already moving on the house. I checked the county recorder this afternoon. Transfer recorded yesterday at 4:17 p.m. I nodded once. "Then we move faster. I want every bank statement from the last 5 years, every wire they pulled from the family accounts. I want to know exactly how much they treated as their own." Marcus tapped notes into the tablet. "I'll have Lydia Chen pull the forensic package. She still owes you from the 2019 restructuring. She can be here by tomorrow noon." We reviewed the documents for another 40 minutes. Each page turned with a soft rustle. The numbers lined up in my head like ledger columns. 1.2 million in undocumented withdrawals over 36 months. Labelled family support, but never discussed with me. Marcus closed the tablet. He looked at me across the table, the same steady gaze he had used when we once foreclosed on a $300 million portfolio. "Eleanor, they made one critical mistake in the filing." I waited. "But to exploit it," he said, "we need to move before they freeze your remaining accounts." I stood and walked him to the door. The night air was cool against my face. His car lights swept across the driveway as he left. I locked the door behind him and returned to the study. The black folder lay open under the desk lamp. I picked up the contingency checklist and drew a single line through the first item. The clock read 9:43. What Marcus had just confirmed would change everything. The morning after Marcus left, I made the call from the landline in the study. No cell records. "Lydia? Eleanor Voss, lunch today. The usual table at the firm's private dining room, 1:30. She didn't ask questions. "I'll have the files ready." I drove into Boston myself. The old firm occupied the 23rd floor of a glass tower on Federal Street. I took the elevator alone, heels quiet on the marble. The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw me. "Mrs. Voss, we weren't expecting." "Casual visit," I said. "No need to announce." Lydia Chen waited in the small conference room off the main dining area. She was 51 now, still sharp as the day she first audited my distressed debt portfolio. A secure laptop sat open between us. 2 plates of grilled salmon arrived, untouched. She slid a thick binder across the table. 18 years of partnership agreements, never amended. You still hold the silent 42% stake in the core fund. Current mark-to-market, 27.4 million. Voting rights intact. No one at the firm has touched it since you stepped back. I opened the binder. The numbers were exactly as I remembered. Page after page of wire confirmations, K1 tax forms, and custody statements from the Delaware LLC, all routed through accounts Vanessa and Derek had never seen. "They think the house is the only asset left," I said quietly. Lydia's smile was small and precise. "They have no idea. I ran a fresh valuation this morning. The distressed assets inside the fund just appreciated another 480,000 in the last quarter alone." We ate in silence for a few minutes. Outside the glass wall, the city hummed 23 floors below. I signed the new revocable trust documents she had prepared overnight. Sole trustee, Eleanor Voss. All prior powers revoked, effective immediately. "Marcus will file this with the court by close of business tomorrow," she said. "It creates a clean paper trail. Any action they take after today becomes a direct breach of fiduciary duty." I closed the binder and slid it back. "Keep it locked. I'll need a full forensic package on the 1.2 million they pulled. Every transfer, every label." Lydia nodded once. "Already running. You'll have it by Friday." I left the tower at 2:45. No one followed me to the parking garage. Back in Wellesley, the afternoon light slanted across the lawn. I had just poured a single cup of tea when my phone rang. The real estate agent's number. I let it go to voicemail. The message played on speaker. "Mrs. Voss, this is Karen from Premier Properties. Your daughter Vanessa and her husband stopped by the office this morning. They have power of attorney and want to list the house immediately. Asking price 4.8 million. They said you're relocating and asked me to coordinate the staging. I'll need your signature to proceed, of course." I deleted the message without replying. At 5:17, the doorbell rang. 2 men in company polo shirts stood on the porch with clipboards. "Mrs. Langford sent us to take measurements for the listing photos. She said you'd be expecting us." I blocked the doorway. She was mistaken. The house is not for sale. The taller one checked his phone. "We have written authorization from the trustees." I shut the door calmly. Through the sidelight, I watched them retreat down the walk, already dialing Vanessa. Their voices carried faintly. "She's refusing entry." "Yeah, she looked fine to me." I returned to the study and updated the contingency checklist. New revocable trust. Signed. Forensic package. In motion. House pressure. Noted. The sun had dropped behind the trees when my phone rang again. Derek's name lit the screen. I answered on the 3rd ring. "Eleanor," he said, voice bright with that practiced charm. "We need to wrap up the loose ends before the hearing. I've got the paperwork here for you to sign over the remaining liquid assets. Just the checking and savings accounts. It's for tax purposes. Keeps everything clean inside the trust." I said nothing. He continued. "Look, we're trying to protect you. The guardianship hearing is set for next Wednesday now. They moved it up. If you cooperate, we can make this painless. Sign the transfer forms I'm emailing you right now, and we'll drop the accelerated timeline." I opened the email on my laptop. The attachment showed a simple assignment of all remaining personal accounts, $412 and change, to the trust. His signature already notarized. "Tax purposes," I repeated. "Exactly," Derek said. "You don't want the IRS poking around at your age. Sign it, scan it back, and we'll handle the rest." Vanessa's already picked out the assisted living unit. Ocean view. You'll love it. I stared at the screen. The cursor blinked over the signature line they expected me to fill. Derek's tone sharpened just slightly. "Come on, Eleanor. Don't make this harder than it has to be. We have the power of attorney. We can file without your consent, but it looks better if you play along. The judge likes cooperation." I closed the laptop lid. "Derek," I said, voice level. "I received the realtor's message. The house is not being listed." He laughed once, short. "That's not your decision anymore. The trust owns it. We'll have the movers there by the weekend if necessary. Just sign the damn forms." I stood up and walked to the window. The garden lights were coming on automatically again. He waited. "Eleanor, you still there?" I ended the call without another word. The phone stayed silent for exactly 11 seconds before it rang again. I let it go to voicemail this time. Derek's recorded voice filled the study. "Fine. You want to play it this way? The hearing gets accelerated to Monday. We'll see you in court. And Eleanor? Don't forget who holds the cards here." I saved the voicemail, labelled it Exhibit D, Coercion Attempt, and added it to the black folder. Then I sat back down at the desk and opened the forensic summary Lydia had emailed me an hour earlier. The first unauthorized transfer stared back. $187,000 wired to Derek's venture account 18 months ago, labelled Family Advance. I drew another line through the checklist. Derek had just handed me the next piece. What he didn't know yet would change everything. The guardianship hearing arrived faster than they expected. Monday morning, 10 o'clock sharp. Middlesex Probate and Family Court, 2nd floor, courtroom 4B. I wore the charcoal suit I had not touched since my husband's funeral 12 years ago. Simple pearls. No makeup beyond the bare minimum. I carried nothing but a thin leather portfolio. Vanessa and Derek were already seated when I entered. Their attorney, a slick man in a $3,000 suit named Richard Harlan, stood at the petitioner's table. He smiled at me like we were old friends. Vanessa gave me a small nod, the kind you give a difficult child. Derek checked his watch. Marcus sat beside me at the respondent's table. He placed a single yellow legal pad in front of him. No theatrics, just facts. Judge Margaret Ellison entered. Silver hair, sharp eyes behind wire frames. She called the case. "In re the guardianship of Eleanor Voss." Harlan began immediately. His voice filled the small courtroom like he owned it. "Your Honour, the petitioner presents clear and convincing evidence of cognitive decline. Mrs. Voss has made erratic charitable donations totaling $43,000 in the last 6 months alone. She lives alone in a $4.8 million home with no support network. Her daughter, a practicing attorney, has observed forgetfulness, missed appointments, and financial decisions that no longer align with prudent management." He slid documents across the bench. Medical affidavits from a doctor they had paid to evaluate me remotely. Bank records they had cherry-picked. I sat perfectly still. My hands rested on the table, palms down. Marcus rose. "Objection, Your Honour. Procedural defect. The petitioners failed to serve the mandatory quarterly review notice required under the original power of attorney, Clause 17. Without that notice, the power was never activated for this purpose." Harlan waved a hand. "A technicality, Judge. Mrs. Voss verbally consented." Marcus's voice stayed even. "There is no recording, no witness, no corroboration. The power of attorney itself requires written notice before any major asset transfer. They recorded a deed transfer without it. That alone voids the petition at this stage." The judge tapped her pen once. "I'll take that under advisement. Continue." Harlan pressed on. He painted me as isolated, confused, a burden. Vanessa testified next. She spoke with practiced concern. "Mom has always been independent, but lately, she refuses help. She cut off contact with old friends. The charity spending is out of control. We only want to protect her. Derek followed. We've already moved the house into a protective trust. It's the responsible thing. She'll have everything she needs in assisted living. I said nothing. Not one word. I let the silence do the work. The judge glanced at me twice. Marcus stood for cross-examination. He asked Vanessa exactly 2 questions. Did you send the quarterly review notice required by the power of attorney? She hesitated. No, but... He cut her off. Did you obtain a written consent for the deed transfer? Another pause. It was implied. Marcus sat down. That was all. The hearing lasted 43 minutes. Judge Ellison scheduled a follow-up in 14 days and ordered expedited discovery. No immediate ruling. No immediate freeze. I walked out first. In the hallway, Vanessa caught my arm. Her grip was light but insistent. Mother, this is embarrassing. Just drop it. We have your best interests at heart. I looked at her hand until she removed it. That afternoon I drove to the American Express Centurion Lounge at Logan Airport. I had not used the card in 9 years. It still worked. The concierge greeted me by name. I sat at a quiet corner table and opened the secure portal on my phone. Every dollar they had pulled from the family accounts over the last 5 years now loaded in neat columns. $1.2 million exactly. $187,000 to Derek's Venture LLC. $312,000 to Vanessa's private client development expenses. $94,000 in cash withdrawals labelled household. All of it routed through the trust they had created without my knowledge. I forwarded the full ledger to Lydia and Marcus. Then I activated the card's concierge service. I need a complete transaction history and flagged alerts on any account linked to Vanessa Langford or Derek Langford, starting now. The woman on the line didn't blink. Understood, Mrs. Voss. You'll have the report by 6 p.m. I left the lounge and drove home. The house was quiet. No movers. No realtors. Not yet. That evening they insisted on dinner at the country club. Neutral ground, they called it. I agreed. The dining room smelled of aged scotch and fresh linen. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over white tablecloths. Vanessa wore a new diamond tennis bracelet I had never seen before. Derek ordered the most expensive bottle on the list without looking at the price. We sat. Menus arrived. No one opened them. Vanessa leaned in, voice low and sweet. The hearing went better than expected, don't you think? The judge saw how reasonable we're being. Next week should wrap this up cleanly. Derek cut his steak with precise strokes. Assisted living is ready. We've already paid the deposit. $28,000 for the first quarter. You'll have round-the-clock care. No more stress about bills. I took a slow sip of water. Vanessa smiled, the same polished smile she used in boardrooms. The hearing is next week, Mother. You'll thank us later. I set the glass down. The ice cubes settled with a soft clink. I looked at her directly. My voice stayed soft, almost gentle. Next week feels like a very long time. Derek's knife paused mid-cut. Vanessa's smile faltered for half a second before she recovered. She reached for her wine. I watched the liquid tremble just slightly in the glass. I folded my napkin and stood. Enjoy the rest of your meal. I left them there, the bill already on their new trust card. As I walked through the mahogany foyer, the Centurion alert buzzed once in my pocket. Lydia's preliminary report had arrived. Unauthorized transfers now totaled $1.2 million, with interest accruing at the legal rate. I stepped into the cool night air. My car waited under the portico. What they had just revealed over dinner would change everything. The eviction notice arrived by certified mail 2 days after the club dinner. I signed for it myself at the front door, the courier's pen cold in my hand. 30 days to vacate, effective immediately upon service. The letterhead belonged to the trust they had created, Vanessa's signature as trustee, Derek's as co-trustee. The property description listed my address in crisp black ink, 47 Oakwood Lane, Wellesley. I carried the envelope inside without a word. The house smelled of fresh coffee and the faint lemon polish on the banister. I set the notice on the kitchen island and opened it flat. Page 1. Legal description of the deed transfer. Page 2. Demand to surrender keys and vacate. Page 3. Warning of forcible removal if I failed to comply. I left it there and walked to the study. No packing boxes, no suitcases. I sat at the desk and opened the black folder instead. The numbers from Lydia's latest report stared back at me. 1.2 million in unauthorized transfers, now accruing interest at 8% per annum under Massachusetts statute. I added the eviction notice as Exhibit E and dated it. My phone buzzed. Lydia. I answered on the first ring. Eleanor, I have the venture file on Derek's latest deal. It's worse than we thought. I waited. His current project, Langford Capital Partners 3, is leveraged against collateral that traces directly back to your old distressed debt holdings. They used the family trust as a silent guarantor without disclosure. 2.8 million in exposure. If the collateral defaults, the bank can claw straight into the trust assets, which are still legally yours under the original agreements. I exhaled once, slow. How soon can they feel it? 30 days if we accelerate the default notice. The bank is one of our old clients. They'll move on our signal. I stood and walked to the window. The lawn was still mine for now. Prepare the demand letter. Full repayment of the 1.2 million plus interest. Compound. Cite breach of fiduciary duty. Send it through Marcus by close of business tomorrow. Certified. Return receipt. Lydia's voice stayed crisp. Already drafting. Marcus will have it by 10 a.m. I ended the call and returned to the binder. Page after page of wire transfers, each one labelled family support or advance. None discussed with me. I highlighted the largest, $312,000 to Vanessa's private expense account last year, the one she had used for the new diamond bracelet I saw at the club. The afternoon passed in silence. I made tea at 4 exactly. Earl Grey, 1 spoon of honey. I carried the cup back to the desk and kept reading. The Centurion app pinged again. Derek's personal card had just been declined at a private jet charter desk in Teterboro. Memo. Insufficient funds pending trust liquidation. I took a sip. The tea was perfect. At 6:30, the doorbell rang. I did not answer immediately. Through the sidelight, I saw Vanessa's Mercedes in the driveway. She stood on the porch in a tailored coat, phone pressed to her ear. 2 men in mover uniforms waited behind her with dollies. I opened the door. Vanessa stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Her heels clicked on the marble. "Mother, this is ridiculous. The eviction is legal. The movers are here to start packing the non-essentials. We're trying to make this easy on you." I closed the door behind them. The latch caught with a soft, final sound. One of the movers cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we have authorization from the trustees." I looked at him once. He looked away. Vanessa crossed her arms. "The hearing is in 12 days. The judge will side with us. Just let them do their job. We've already picked out the unit. It's ready next week." I walked past her into the living room. They followed. I stopped at the side table and picked up the eviction notice I had left there earlier. I held it out to her. She took it, scanned it, and handed it back with a small smile. "See? It's done. Fighting only makes it harder." I folded the paper once and placed it in my pocket. Derek's voice came through her phone speaker. He was on hold. "Tell her the bank is already processing the trust liquidation.
She'll have pocket money and assisted living. $10,000 a month.
More than enough. Vanessa muted the phone. You heard him. Cooperate and we'll be generous. I returned to the study. They trailed me. The movers hovered in the hallway, uncertain. I sat down at the desk, opened the thick binder and turned to the page with the highlighted transfers. The numbers glowed under the lamp. 1.2 million. Exact. Vanessa stopped in the doorway. Her eyes flicked to the binder, then to my face. For the first time, she looked unsure. I lifted the teacup and took another sip. The steam rose steady. She stepped closer. What is that? I set the cup down without a sound. The porcelain clicked once against the saucer. Vanessa's phone buzzed in her hand. Derek again. She ignored it. Her voice sharpened. Mother, what are you looking at? I turned the binder slightly so the top line was visible. The largest unauthorized wire stared up at her in black and white. She read it. Her posture changed, shoulders tighter. The diamond bracelet caught the light and flashed once. The mover in the hall shifted his weight. Should we start in the living room? I did not look at him. Vanessa tried to smile again. It came out tight.
This is nothing. Old accounting. We'll explain everything at the next hearing.
I closed the binder slowly. The pages settled with a soft thud. Vanessa's phone rang again. She answered this time, voice low and urgent. Derek, she has some old statements. It's fine. Just get here. She ended the call and looked back at me. You're making this so much harder than it needs to be. I folded my hands on top of the binder. The leather was cool under my palms. The grandfather clock in the hall struck 7. Vanessa stood there, coat still on, movers waiting behind her like props. The house was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I looked at her directly. My voice stayed even, almost kind. Vanessa, I said, you should sit down. She did not move. I opened the binder again to the exact page that listed the 2.8 million collateral tie to Derek's failing venture. Her eyes locked on the numbers. What she saw in that moment would change everything. Derek's venture began to unravel 3 days later. I knew the exact moment because the Centurion app pinged at 9:17 a.m. while I was watering the ferns in the sunroom. Langford Capital Partners 3 had just been downgraded by 2 credit agencies. Collateral value dropped 18% overnight. Subtle market signals. Nothing loud. My silent partners at the old firm had simply stopped rolling over the short-term paper. No fingerprints. I set the watering can down and opened the secure laptop. The numbers were already moving. Derek's personal line of credit, secured against the trust, now sat at negative equity. The bank had frozen further draws. My phone stayed quiet until noon. Then it rang. Vanessa. I let it go to voicemail once before answering on the second call. Mother. Her voice was tight, professional on the surface. We need to liquidate a portion of the trust assets immediately. Derek's deal requires bridge financing. It's temporary. You'll get it back with interest. I stood at the kitchen island, eviction notice still pinned under a paperweight. Which assets? She hesitated half a second. The liquid accounts. The ones we already control. Just sign the authorization I'm sending right now. I opened the email on my tablet. The attachment asked for immediate release of $450,000 from the household trust. Her signature was already notarized. I read the memo line aloud. Emergency family liquidity. Yes, Vanessa said. It's nothing. A short-term cash flow issue. The hearing is in 9 days. We don't want complications. I scrolled to the bottom of the document. You want me to authorize the release of funds from an account you claim I'm mentally unfit to manage? Silence on her end. I could hear her breathing through the speaker. Mother, this is not the time for games. Derek's investors are calling. We need this wired by 3 p.m. I closed the email. No, she laughed once, sharp. You don't have a choice. The trust papers give us discretion. I walked to the study and opened the black folder. The latest forensic update from Lydia sat on top. I turned to the highlighted section and read the exact figure aloud. $940,000 in unauthorized transfers over the last 36 months, plus accrued interest at 8%. That brings the total demand to $1,382,000 as of this morning. Vanessa's breath caught. What demand? I continued, voice level. Marcus filed the counterclaim at 9 this morning. Financial elder abuse. Breach of fiduciary duty. The court has been served. Your joint accounts are now under review. You're bluffing. Her tone cracked on the last word. I turned another page. The bank has already placed a temporary hold on any liquidation attempts. They received the notice at 10:47. You can check your own statements. A long pause. I heard Derek's muffled voice in the background asking what was happening. Vanessa shushed him. Mother, she said, lower now. We can fix this. Just come to the office. We'll sit down like adults. The assisted living deposit is refundable if you cooperate. I sat down at the desk. The leather chair creaked once. The counterclaim includes a request for full accounting of every wire, including the $312,000 you routed to your personal expense account last year, the one that paid for the diamond bracelet you wore to the club. Her voice dropped to a whisper. That was a family advance. Family advances require discussion, I said, and documentation, neither of which exists. I heard a drawer slam on her end. You're destroying everything we built. I closed the folder. You built it with my money. Now you're trying to burn the bridge while standing on it. Derek's voice came through clearly now, angry and close to the phone. Give me that. Eleanor, listen, this is a misunderstanding. We'll repay every cent. Just pull the counterclaim before the judge sees it. I waited 3 full seconds. The counterclaim is already filed. The numbers are stacking, Derek. 940,000 principal, interest compounding daily. The judge will see everything on Monday. Vanessa took the phone back. Her breathing was faster. You're making a mistake. We still control the house. The eviction stands. The movers come back tomorrow. I looked out the window at the oak trees. Leaves moved in the breeze, slow and steady. The movers will be turned away at the gate. I changed the security code this morning. The new revocable trust I executed last week lists the property as sole asset. Your deed transfer is under challenge. Derek cursed in the background. Vanessa tried one last time, voice sweet again. Mother, please. We're family. I ended the call without replying. The rest of the afternoon passed in quiet calculation. I reviewed the final ledger with Lydia over a secure line. We added the latest attempted liquidation request as Exhibit F. The total now stood at $1,412,000 with today's interest. Marcus confirmed the court had accepted the counterclaim and scheduled an emergency status conference for the following week. I ate dinner alone. Grilled salmon, same as the day I met Lydia at the firm. The house was still mine, no boxes, no movers. At 11:40, I turned off the lights and went upstairs. The bedroom smelled of lavender from the sachet in the drawer. I set my phone on the nightstand and slept without dreams. The call came at 2:07 a.m. Marcus's name on the screen. I answered before the second ring. Eleanor? His voice was calm but urgent. They just received the freeze order on their joint accounts. Vanessa is on the phone screaming for you. I sat up in bed. The digital clock glowed soft blue. I said nothing. I simply listened to the silence on his end while he waited for my instruction. What they had just received would change everything. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee. Courtroom 4B again, but this time the gallery was fuller. Reporters from the local business journal sat in the back row, notepads ready. The final hearing. Monday, 9:30 a.m. I wore the same charcoal suit. Pearls. Marcus beside me, yellow legal pad untouched. Vanessa and Derek arrived early. They looked polished. New suits. Her hair in a tight chignon. His watch flashed under the fluorescent lights. Attorney Harlan stood at their table like a general reviewing troops. They expected an easy win. I could see it in the way Derek leaned back, ankles crossed, smiling at the bailiff. Judge Ellison entered, robe crisp. She called the case. Continued matter of the guardianship of Eleanor Voss. Harlan rose first. His voice boomed with practiced confidence. Your Honour, the evidence is overwhelming. Mrs. Voss's erratic spending continues. 43,000 in unapproved donations. She refuses reasonable support. The petitioners have already protected the primary residence through the trust. We ask the court to appoint Vanessa Langford as guardian and conservator with full authority over remaining assets. He presented the same medical affidavits, the same cherry-picked bank records. Vanessa testified again. Her voice dripped concern.
Mom won't accept help. She's isolating herself. We only want to keep her safe and comfortable. Derek followed. The trust is already in place. We've managed everything responsibly. The assisted living unit is paid through the quarter.
She'll have everything she needs. I sat motionless, hands flat on the table. No notes, no reaction. Marcus stood. His tone stayed flat, professional. Your Honour, the respondent presents new evidence. Forensic audit completed by Lydia Chen, certified public accountant with 18 years on the Voss accounts. He slid the thick binder across the bench. The judge opened it. Harlan's smile flickered. Marcus continued. Page 1. $940,000 in unauthorized transfers from the family accounts over 36 months, each labeled as family support, without discussion or documentation. Page 7. Wire to Derek Langford's Venture, LLC, in the amount of $187,000. Page 12. $312,000 routed to Vanessa Langford's personal expense account, used for luxury purchases, including a diamond tennis bracelet purchased last year. Vanessa's posture stiffened. Marcus kept going. The petitioners also forged an addendum to the power of attorney. Signatures do not match the original. We have the graphologist report attached as Exhibit G. The judge flipped pages. Her expression changed. Brows drew together. She looked up at Harlan once. Marcus did not pause. Finally, Your Honour, the petitioners were unaware of one material fact. Eleanor Voss retains sole control of a silent 42% stake in the original private equity fund. Current valuation, $27.4 million. Voting rights never transferred. The trust they created has no claim on those assets. Derek's face drained of colour. The tan from his last trip to Aspen disappeared in seconds. He gripped the edge of the table. Vanessa turned to him, eyes wide. The judge closed the binder slowly. Mr. Harlan, do you wish to respond? Harlan stood. His voice had lost its boom. Your Honour, these numbers are taken out of context. Family advances. Nothing more. Marcus slid one more document forward. The counterclaim for financial elder abuse is now active. We request immediate accounting of all trust activity and dismissal of the guardianship petition with prejudice. The courtroom stayed quiet. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Judge Ellison removed her glasses. She rubbed the bridge of her nose. I need to review this material in chambers. We will recess for 30 minutes. Counsel will join me for a private sidebar. She stood. The bailiff called the recess. Vanessa and Derek rose. Their movements were no longer smooth. Harlan gathered papers with shaking hands, As they passed our table, Vanessa leaned close to Derek. Her whisper carried just far enough for me to hear. "This can't be happening." Derek did not answer. His jaw worked silently. I remained seated. Marcus closed the binder and placed it back in his briefcase. The gallery murmured. Reporters scribbled faster. I looked straight ahead at the empty bench. The black folder in my study held one final page. The settlement offer I had prepared weeks ago. Repayment of $1.85 million. Full revocation of the trust. Permanent no contact order. The judge's chamber's door closed behind the attorneys. I waited. The air felt lighter already. What happened behind that door would change everything. The sterile conference room on the third floor smelled of fresh printer ink and chilled air conditioning. No windows, just a long glass table, 6 black leather chairs, and a sideboard with untouched water pitchers. The judge had recessed the hearing and ordered immediate settlement talks. 30 minutes later, we sat across from each other, Marcus to my right, Harlan to theirs. Vanessa and Derek directly opposite me. I kept my hands folded on the table, the charcoal suit still perfect. Pearls catching the overhead light. No expression beyond quiet composure. Harlan cleared his throat. "Mrs. Voss, the petitioners are prepared to negotiate. In light of the new evidence, we propose a revised trust structure. You retain the house, they retain limited oversight on liquid accounts. The guardianship petition is withdrawn." I said nothing. I simply slid the settlement folder across the glass. It stopped exactly in front of Vanessa. Marcus spoke once, calm and precise. Full repayment of misused funds, $1,850,000. Compounded interest calculated to today. Full revocation of the trust and deed transfer. Permanent no contact order. Signed today or we proceed to full trial. Vanessa opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the first page. The colour left her face in stages. Derek leaned in. His Rolex scraped the table edge. "This is extortion," Vanessa said. Her voice tried for courtroom steel but landed flat. $1.85 million. We don't have that liquid. The venture is still... I lifted one finger. She stopped mid-sentence. I opened my own thin portfolio and removed a single platinum card statement. I slid it across next. The top line showed the available credit line, $2,400,000. Untouched reserves from the silent stake distributions. Never mentioned, never touched. Derek's eyes locked on the number. His mouth opened, then closed. The tan he had maintained for years seemed to crack. Vanessa tried one last arrogant bluff. She pushed the statement back toward me with 2 fingers, as if it were contaminated. "You're hiding assets. This changes nothing. The judge saw your erratic donations. We still have the original affidavits. We can drag this out for months. You'll be exhausted. Just accept the assisted living offer and we'll reduce the repayment to $800,000. Family discount." I looked at her directly. My voice stayed soft, almost kind. $800,000 is not on the table. Derek's hand shook as he reached for the water pitcher. He poured a glass. Water sloshed over the rim. He did not wipe it up. Harlan flipped through the settlement pages. His pen hovered. "Mrs. Voss, the no-contact clause is extreme. They're your only daughter." I turned my gaze to him. "They stopped being family the day they filed the mental incompetence petition." Marcus added quietly, "The clause is non-negotiable. Violation triggers immediate contempt and full repayment due in 30 days. Silence stretched. The air conditioning hummed once, then settled. Vanessa stared at the platinum card statement again. The numbers did not change. 27.4 million still sat behind it, invisible until now. Her shoulders dropped half an inch. The diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist suddenly looked cheap under the fluorescent lights.
Derek spoke for the first time. His voice cracked on the first word. "We'll sign. Just give us 30 days on the repayment. The venture collateral is still—" "No," I said. One word, short, final. Harlan exhaled. "They'll sign today."
Full amount wired from their joint accounts before close of business. Trust revoked by tomorrow morning. House deed returned to sole ownership. Vanessa looked at Derek. He gave one small nod, eyes on the table. They signed, page after page. The pens scratched loud in the quiet room. Harlan witnessed. Marcus notarized on the spot with the portable stamp he had brought. I watched every signature. My posture never changed. When the last page was done, Vanessa slid the folder back to me. Her eyes met mine for the first time since we entered the room. Something in them had finally broken. Not tears, just the end of pretending. I stood up slowly. The chair legs whispered against the carpet. "One more thing," I said. I reached into the inner pocket of my portfolio and removed the final document. A single sheet. The permanent restraining order application, already pre-filed with the court that morning. It listed both their names. 500 yards separation at all times, no calls, no emails, no drive-bys. Violation meant immediate arrest. I placed it in front of them. Vanessa read the first line. Her hand froze above the paper. Derek's face went completely blank. The realization hit him like the final ledger line. Their lifestyle, the club dinners, the private jets, the diamond bracelet, was over. The accounts were frozen until the wire cleared. The venture would collapse without the trust guarantee. Social circles would close within 48 hours. I did not smile. I simply waited. Vanessa's pen hovered, then it moved. She signed. Derek followed, fingers white around the barrel. I took the document back and placed it in the folder. Marcus closed his briefcase with a soft click. I turned toward the door. The settlement was done. The house was mine again. The numbers had spoken louder than any courtroom speech. What I had just handed them would change everything. The papers were signed. The conference room door clicked shut behind us. Marcus walked me to the elevator in silence. Outside the courthouse, the air felt sharper, cleaner. No one followed. No last-minute pleas. Just the low hum of traffic on Cambridge Street and the weight of the black folder under my arm. 3 days later, the house was mine again. The deed transfer reversed in the county recorder's office at 9:47 a.m. I stood in the Wellesley kitchen and watched the clerk's stamp hit the final page through the secure portal. 4.8 million valuation on paper. I listed it quietly the next morning through a broker who owed me a favour from the old firm days. No sign in the yard. No open houses. Cash buyer in 48 hours. Closing price, 9.1 million. Net profit after all fees, 4.2 million. Wired straight to the new revocable trust. I packed only what mattered. 3 suitcases, the black folder, the small leather journal I kept on the nightstand. Everything else stayed with the house. The movers I hired arrived at dawn on a Tuesday. By noon, the colonial sat empty, keys handed to the new owners. I did not look back in the rearview mirror as I drove away. The new place waited across the harbour in a quiet building I had bought outright 15 years ago under the Delaware LLC. 12th floor, 2 bedrooms, paid in full. Floor-to-ceiling windows faced the water. No lawn to maintain. No trust to fight. Just the soft lap of waves against the pilings below and the distant call of gulls at first light. I unpacked in the late afternoon. The tea kettle whistled at 4 exactly. Earl Grey, 1 spoon of honey. I carried the cup to the balcony and sat in the single wrought iron chair. The city skyline glowed soft gold across the water. No phone calls, no alerts. The Centurion app showed every account exactly where it belonged. 27.4 million still intact. The 1.85 million repayment had cleared that morning, compounded interest included. Vanessa and Derek felt the numbers first. Their joint account stayed frozen until the wire posted. Credit cards declined at the club that same evening. Derek's venture, Langford Capital Partners 3, lost its last collateral line by Thursday. The bank called the note at 3 p.m. Full balance due, 2.8 million. No extension. Social media went quiet. His LinkedIn post from 2 weeks earlier now sat at the top of search results with 0 new likes. Colleagues who once returned his calls now routed them to assistance. The diamond tennis bracelet appeared on a resale site the following week. Asking price? $28,000. No takers yet. I heard the details from Marcus once in a single secure call. He spoke without emotion. They tried one last motion to reopen the case. Denied. Restraining order active. 500 yards. They won't come near the harbour. I thanked him and hung up. No questions, no follow-up. The days settled into their own rhythm. Mornings began with the same cup of tea on the balcony. I watched the ferries cut white lines across the water. Afternoons, I reviewed the old firm statements, not because I needed to, but because the numbers still grounded me. Evenings, I read. No television, no visitors. The silence was not empty. It was earned. This morning, the journal lay open on the small table beside the tea. I picked up the pen and wrote the final entry. The ink moved steady across the page. They thought the house was the prize. They thought my age was the weakness. They never understood that the quietest accounts were the ones that never needed to speak. I closed the journal and set it aside. The harbour breeze moved the curtain once, then stilled. No anger left. No satisfaction that needed an audience. Only the clean line of independence, drawn in black ink and bank statements. If you have ever been underestimated by those who claimed to love you, drop a comment below with one word that describes how it felt. And if this story resonated, consider subscribing for more tales of quiet reckonings. I stood up, carried the empty cup inside, and rinsed it in the sink. The water ran clear and cold. Outside, the gulls called again. The city kept moving. I kept breathing. The Arrogance had an expiration date. It expired today.